Alright everyone, hello, and you know what? We gotta talk about Lent just a little bit because it is either coming up or already here, whichever happens. This is 6 weeks of long, hard, state-mandated sadness. So we get into how we might observe this time, what it is, what it does, what the reason for it is. A lot of people have asked me what I do specifically, and I thought I'd talk a little bit about it. Let's get into it. So, the two big holidays of the Christian religion are Christmas, when Christ is born, and Easter, when Christ rises from the dead. However, there are some things in between here, some of which we've already talked about, right, with Imbolc and Candlemas, but one of them is Lent. And Lent is that 6-week period, starting on Ash Wednesday and ending on Easter Sunday, that serves basically as a 40-day version of Imbolc / Candlemas, right? If we think about neo-pagan Imbolc and how it has those themes of washing away winter, purifying ourselves of the past, getting ready to step into the springtime where everything is alive and green and beautiful, Lent has a similar function in which over this 40 days, people spend a lot of time fasting, praying, doing penance for any wrongdoings that they've done. And it kicks off on Ash Wednesday, which on this year is on the same day as Valentine's Day. But a lot of people don't know what Ash Wednesday is, so let me explain really quick. If you live in an area where there are Catholic folks, and you ever notice that on one Wednesday of the year, they come in with like a bunch of stuff on their head, like ashes all smushed up on there, and you're like, what happened here? Did you accidentally put eyeshadow on your forehead? No. Ash Wednesday is a time that, again, marks the very start of the Lenten season, and the point of those ashes is to symbolize the inevitability of death. How from ashes we were made, and to ashes we will return, right? From dust to dust, from ash to ash. So this whole thing happens on a Wednesday, and you take the palms from the former, the last year's Palm Sunday, which is its own separate thing. You burn those up to make the ashes, and the whole thing is kind of prayer, penance. You go to church and you do confession, all these other kinds of things. You get the ashes on your head in a cross, and that is the kickoff. That is you saying, yep, I acknowledge that this body is not permanent, that, I have to spend what time I'm on this earth doing my best, that eventually, God gave me these materials to have this body, and one day I will have to give them back, put them back into the ground, and go back to dust. There's a reason that one of the most iconic pieces of Catholic art is Memento Mori. But anyway, so on Ash Wednesday is the start, and then the day before that is actually, if you've ever heard of Mardi Gras or Fat Tuesday, that's the day before. Because that's literally the last hurrah. That's called Shrovetide across all cultures. It's the season of Shrovetide that happens before that. So your Fasching, your Mardi Gras, your Pust, your, all these Maslenitsa, all these other different kinds of holidays happen. Bang, right before all that stuff. Basically it's one last big party to scare away winter, to eat your fill of all kinds of fatty, delicious foods, to drink and party and go nuts. Because Ash Wednesday, the curtain falls, and it is 40 days of solemnity. On Ash Wednesday specifically, you fast, which, depending on your tradition, means a couple different things. In the Catholic tradition, you kind of have maximum, one normal meal, and then 2 small snacks that should not equal a meal. So, an example of a snack would be you have an apple in the morning, you have a decent lunch, and then at night you have, I don't know, maybe a granola bar or something like that. That would be a day of fasting from a Catholic perspective. You also do not eat meat. No red meat, right? So red meat is avoided during Fridays specifically, every Friday during Lent, because red meat, that kind of bloody red flesh, symbolizes the flesh of Christ. And obviously Jesus died on a Friday in our traditions, so that means that we avoid that meat as out of respect for Jesus' sacrifice. It's also on Ash Wednesday, which starts it, that we avoid meat. And then every other day is just a normal day, but Fridays during Lent, no meat. In Catholic tradition though, fish and also rabbit are still allowed, mostly because back in the day there was so little food that they had to make an exception for rabbit. It doesn't make a lot of sense to be putting people in actual food insecurity danger for this holiday, so the Catholic Church did say that was fine. But for the most part, it's really just fish that's allowed. Fish is not considered like meat in general. Even in Judaism, it's called parv, like fish and eggs are not considered meat. So there's that. But in Catholicism as well, fish doesn't count as meat. So you'll notice if you live in Catholic areas, a lot of Catholics, many Catholics, are eating fish and chips or having some kind of fish fry or doing some kind of seafood thing on Fridays. In fact, in my area, when I was working at Wendy's, like, McDonald's had their fish fillet all year round, but Wendy's only got fish sandwiches during Lent season, which was really funny. And likewise with the fasting on Ash Wednesday, there is another time of fasting on Good Friday. Good Friday, that name is a bit of a misnomer, but Good Friday is the day, like the last Friday before Easter. So like Friday, then Holy Saturday, Easter Sunday. That Friday before Easter is Good Friday because that is like the day Jesus died, and it's like 3 p.m. per the Gospels. Bang. Like, that's it, right? And so that's another day of fasting with just like the 1 meal and 2 snacks. But then again, on Sunday, all bets are off. Everyone's having a party. Big feast, huge thing. On Saturday, you can actually, in Slavic traditions like mine, you bring all your stuff to the church to have it blessed, so that on Easter Sunday, you're eating stuff that is extra blessed, holy food, blah, 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 family, parties, all this other kind of, like, the whole thing. Just, it's the biggest party, right? Because not only is Jesus exist, but also he defeated death. And another characteristic of Lent is usually that people give something up. So like a lot of people traditionally give up chocolate, just because people like chocolate. But the point is you're supposed to sacrifice a little bit, right? Like you're kind of supposed to go without something for penance, for like a kind of spiritual fast. So if there's something that's kind of a vice for you, or that you're trying to shake off, or that you're trying to rely on less, this is a good time to build those habits. A lot of people, though, they don't like the idea of giving something up, so what they do is they add something on. So they might make a commitment to be more charitable, to do more volunteer work, to help people more when they can, to, I don't know, maybe do some kind of act of kindness on a daily basis. Whatever it is, there is something you can add as well. If you didn't want to fast from something like chocolate, if that doesn't really feel like it hits, you might also put $5 aside every week, and at the end of Lent, give that collection of money off to a charity of your choice. There's a lot of different things you can do. But that's just Catholic tradition. In Orthodox tradition, you don't eat any animal products at all. The entire 40 days. Like, the entire 40 days. No meat, no fish, no eggs, no milk, no nothing. Purely vegan for 40 days. That's the Orthodox. So they're playing it on hard mode. I grew up Catholic. Being Catholic, honestly, ain't even that hard, really. It's just kind of like going about your daily life. Oh shit, it's Friday. We're not eating meat today. Great. And like the rest is okay, right? Like, even growing up, we didn't even do the fasting so much. Like, because not a lot of people do that anymore. And if you are a young child, or you're an elder, or you are someone who for medical reasons cannot fast, obviously you do have an exemption. There's no reason that performing or observing this should be impacting your health in any way. So if you can't do the fasting for whatever reason, do not do it. You are exempt from that. So that's kind of the overview of just like Lent in general. The whole thing, again, the point is you reflect on things that you kind of effed up in the last year. You think about how you can do better. You kind of commit to having a better year, to kind of cleansing yourself, right, of all that, like repenting, asking for forgiveness, achieving forgiveness, right? Like, remember, that's another part. When you ask forgiveness, you really shouldn't keep beating yourself up for these things after that. The point is to move on. The point isn't to wallow in what you did wrong. The point is to acknowledge it and then move on and commit to doing better, right? So that's the whole point of this, is that we're washing off all this old gunk. We are making our atonement for things that we messed up, because we all mess up. We all make mistakes. We all do things that are not in alignment with who we really are. So getting that right and moving on, that's the whole point. 40 days of just like figuring it out. So maybe you would want to journal. Maybe that's something helpful you could do as like a Lenten thing, journaling, thinking about places where you fall short and would like to try and do better. It's entirely up to you. You can make it yours, but this is how I usually do it. Oh, Wings! What are you doing, Wingy boy? Yabby! Yabby! Bee, look! What are you doing, Bee? Bee, look, you do Wings! Bee, look! Yeah, Wings! Yeah, Wings! Yeah, good Bee! Yeah, Bee, do Wings! Yeah. Obi. So normally when I do Lent, what I'm trying to do is really just get by, to be honest. But I used to give up chocolate all the time, to the point that, like, when I went on a school trip, we had a school trip to, like, France and stuff like that, when I was in high school, and it was during Lent, like, we were in Notre Dame Cathedral on Easter Sunday. Wow, it was pretty cool. But, you know, I was giving up chocolate, and that's such a popular thing to do that, like, the restaurants we went to the couple days before Easter were so accommodating. They're like, oh, you can't have this chocolate thing? Don't worry, we have a whole separate thing lined up. Oh, you can't have meat because it's like, don't worry, we have a whole new salmon dish just for you. Like, super accommodating for that, because it's so common for people to be, like, still practicing Catholic or need that kind of thing. So that was cool. But now that I don't eat chocolate that much anymore, and, like, honestly, giving up chocolate just feels like a non-issue, really. I do different things where it's like, maybe I haven't been, like, super patient with people, so maybe I make a commitment to try practicing patience more, or develop some kind of habit that helps me deal with patience. Or maybe I give up, again, certain vices, right? Like, maybe if there's, like, some trash reality TV that I've been watching, and I notice myself getting, like, kind of extra judgmental with people because, like, I'm watching trash reality TV where the whole point is to judge people, I will cut that out for 40 days. I'll be like, alright, no more of that. Reset a little bit. Remind ourselves that, like, okay, yeah, schadenfreude is fun and cute, but, like, relax, right? So those are the kind of things that, like, I'll kind of try to focus on, or maybe, like, more prayer. Maybe commit more to praying the rosary, or, you know, something like that. Some kind of commitment where I'm making a purposeful, intentional sacrifice or addition to my practice and my daily life to focus on the idea of preparing for spring, cleansing off the old, getting ready for the new, all that kind of stuff. And one of my favorite meals to make for Lent, honestly, especially on Fridays, is, like, I have a sausage and pepper recipe where I just replace the sausage with shrimp. And it works really well. It tastes really good. The shrimp just add this really nice, like, kind of seafood flavor to it that makes it feel almost more like a jambalaya in a way. I know it's, like, not really the same at all, but it just kind of makes me think of jambalaya to me. I don't know. Likewise, if I'm going out to eat and I happen to go out and eat on a Friday, which, like, you know, happens, there are tons of really good Indian restaurants nearby that have really good, like, chickpea masala or other kinds of vegan dishes that are really good for when you are trying to do Lent during, like, daily life.
Come on, stupid. Yeah, that's Bidgie. That's Bidgie.
It's more towards the end of Lent where things get, like, a little more serious, I guess, where it's not just kind of, like, doing the steps, going through the motions. It's more, like, doing the thing, and that's, again, on Good Friday, Holy Saturday, Easter Sunday, right? So Good Friday, again, in the Gospels, it actually does say that Jesus died at 3 p.m. So my mom always would light a candle for Jesus at 3. I now also light a candle at 3. And then I really spend that day reflecting on the story, right? So, I mean, think about it. Because, like, now it's like, of course, we do this every year. We know that, like, Jesus dies. But then he comes back, yay. So we, like, have that spoiler. I spend time thinking about the people who did not have that spoiler, right? Like, Jesus' mom, his disciples and apostles, like, how it felt to have someone they really believed would be the savior suddenly hung up on that cross, and that grief and that tragedy, right, of having this imperialist power put him up on that. Again, Holy Saturday, I'm at the church with my baskets of stuff that you know I've already prepared beforehand, right? Like, in preparation for Easter, you have to do things for, like, us Slovenes do, like bake pizza and color a million eggs. And those eggs and the pizza and, like, chocolates and ham and anything else that you're going to eat on Easter Sunday, you bring it to the church on Saturday to have blessed. The priest says a blessing, kind of sprinkles holy water over everything, so make sure it's covered in some kind of wrap. Saying this from experience. Make sure that it's wrapped so you don't get holy water, like, directly on it, because that's, like, not the most sanitary. And then you save it for Easter Sunday. This is when all of the Lent conditions end. So no more fasting on Ash Wednesday, Good Friday. No more meatless Fridays. You know, anything that you gave up, you can go back to having again. Anything that you committed to doing extra, if you found that it was useful, by all means continue doing it, but you don't have to keep it up anymore, right? And hopefully, especially if it's a habit you've been trying to build, that'll stay with you now. They say it takes like 3 weeks to build a habit. Lent is like 6 weeks, so it's a good time to build habits if you were trying to. But after that, it's over, and then it's Pentecost after that, and like all these other kinds of things. Spring, summer, like all of that, just lively, big, cozy time of the year. It is now started because spring is here. And to address this off the bat, no, Easter is not just Ostara rebranded. That is not what it is. Easter follows the same kind of calculations that Passover does, because in many other languages, Easter is called some form of Passover. It literally comes out of the story of Jesus, where his last meal, the Last Supper, was a Passover meal, not a Seder. The Passover Seder as we know them now was not what was going on then. It's a different thing. Passover Seders are a bit more modern. But it was a Passover meal. That's why Jesus was then considered the Passover lamb, right? So Easter is calculated by the Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox. So if the spring equinox is like always on March 23rd, sometimes you will have Easter Sunday in March, like we have it this year, the last day of March. Sometimes you will have it in April. It all depends. All depends when that moon is actually full after Easter.
Yay, beach! Yay, BG! What? What are you doing?
This is a new game I like to play with him.
Oh. This beach.
But that is the long and short of Lent. So honestly, I mean, like, if you're kind of late to it, right? You forgot that it was Lent. That's okay. Go ahead and feel free to just pick it up in the middle. One thing people gotta learn is that perfection is not the goal here, okay? Like, sometimes, we've all had times where we find ourselves in the middle of a cheeseburger during Lent and we're like, oh shit, it's Friday, whoops. So, of course, right, there are times where we're all gonna mess up, maybe forget something, maybe we pop up a piece of chocolate into our mouth when we said we were gonna give it up, oops, right? Don't worry about perfect, don't worry if, you didn't realize it and you started a couple weeks late, that's fine, just do your best. Do your best to get the point of it, which is to just kind of, do your penance, do your confession, do your journaling, think about some missteps you made last year and some ways you can do better this year. That's really all there is to it.
Hi, BG!
But I hope this was helpful, and if this is your first time doing Lent, it's really it's not as do or die as people make it seem, right? It's not that complicated. It is just a really great time to get into this kind of stuff. And there is an older Catholic tradition, if you wanted to kind of practice this, I guess, leading up to it, where there are these things called Ember Days. I'm really bad at Ember Days. I pretty much only associate this kind of behavior with Lent. So I've tried to do Ember Days and just not done it. But basically, Ember Days are 3 days around the start of each season, like spring, summer, winter, fall, all that, where what you do is you fast on Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, right? So Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, you do a full fast where it's just 2 snacks and a meal, and on the Friday of that Ember Day, you don't eat meat. So you can eat meat on Wednesday and Saturday, no meat on Friday. And the point is a joyful fast, where you're kind of thinking of things you're grateful for. You're not fasting as a way of penance, but as a way to kind of tame the needs of the body in a way, right? A lot of fasting has to do with kind of transcending the needs of the body and becoming deeper into your soul, right? More spiritual as a person, that kind of thing. So that's a different context of fasting, where it's not about penance and being sad. It's about joy and gratitude and separating from the body to become a more spiritual person. But the same idea applies, so you could also incorporate that if you wanted to. I've never been successful because I always forget, because it's just not something I've grown up doing. That was phased out of the Catholic Church, I think, in the 60s. So, but it is still there. You could try it if it has value to you. It's all up to you. And with that, I will see you guys next time for some more discussions. Got a lot of interesting things to talk about. Sure do. So, see ya.